It's looking very much like a case of spare we go again for Prince Harry, who quit his role as spare to the heir in the UK, relocated to the US, and now finds himself frequently taking that role of spare or plus one to his dazzling wife, Meghan. It was always going to be a challenge in terms of who would take centre stage, and the couple do change between roles. I mean, if Harry's doing Invictus, he'll tend to be very much more in the spotlight, and Meghan at her own events. But I picked out one particular moment when, for me, in terms of their body language and visuals, it perfectly encapsulates that moment when Harry, I think quite happily, adopted the role of spare to his wife. Married to any powerful character will always mean taking it in turns, sometimes not at all. Margaret Thatcher, for instance, was never really seen to push Dennis into the spotlight because it was his turn. And even the late Queen was always the one that was centre stage and at the front. Philip would tend to stand behind her, often be shadowing her, often with his hands behind his back, so that she was the more visible person, despite the height differential. In the rock, paper, scissors world of natural hierarchy, though, who was ever going to win between a UK royal title versus a Hollywood profile? Harry grew up in the role of spare, but he also grew up having the expectation, as a very popular prince as well, that he would command respect and be the centre of attention in any room that he walked into. But that's not always been the case in America, where it's often been Meghan hosting him and showing him around as the newbie. Meghan also tends to have several natural talents that Harry doesn't lack altogether. But for instance, she's a very powerful speaker, she's very confident, she's very relaxed when she's up there on the stage. Harry maybe not so. He suffers a lot with his nerves before he goes up to make a speech. And also socially, Meghan is very socially adept. She seems to be great when it comes to meeting and greeting. Harry's a little bit patchy about that one. He still suffers a little bit from that royal shyness that we saw from both himself and William, and to a certain extent Diana. So there's almost a natural tendency for Meghan to take the lead. What we've seen as a result of this nature versus nurture imbalance in America, though, it almost seems to answer the question or the theory that humans tend to move towards the familiar, to gain almost a sense of comfort from the familiar. And for Harry, that spare role clearly was something that he grew up with, he became familiar with. And therefore, whether we like it or not, we'll often move into it. And that appears to be what Harry's done. As I say, not all the time, but frequently. We can see when we look at photographic evidence a direct contrast between their status roles back in the day of their engagement. I mean, there was one beautiful photograph that was one of the formal shots that came out of their engagement. It was a monochrome shot, and we can see Harry very much the alpha male standing in the front of the shot. Meghan, in very romantic pose, but very traditional pose, she's tucked behind him. We can see that height differential. She's holding onto his arm, maybe looking a bit more vulnerable, but very much showing us that Harry's the star of the show here. When we look now, and for me, the defining moment was the Time magazine cover. Now, this was to showcase the couple as one of the most influential power couples of their time. What we see in the photograph, though, is very interesting. Now, we can see that Meghan, for instance, is taking up nearly 2/3 of the cover. Harry's taking up much less space. We can also see Meghan's pose. This is a power pose. She's got her eyes very much fixed on the camera. She's communicating with the camera. It's a very direct stare. She's also got an asymmetric smile, and that singles her out as the one that you go out and talk to. She looks like the confident one. She looks like the one that you would immediately engage with. It defines her in a way as the leader here. She's also standing with a leg splay, which is a sign of confidence. She's got the upturned V gap under her armpit. She's got her hands lightly clasped in front, and both of those are signals of power, status and confidence. Even her outfit, which is a sort of block colour of white would be a very eye-catching shade. She also, it would single her out as a special one in the room. Harry, though, is standing behind his wife, almost hiding behind her. It's a very capricious looking pose. It's as though he's kind of peeking out from behind her like a little pixie or something. He's also got this very awkward looking hand on her shoulder. It looks as though he's been told to put it there. He's not owning the pose. Meghan's owning the pose. He looks as though he's been brought in and posed around her. He's got a softer eye expression here. And he's also, we can only see one leg. I don't know where the other leg went, but there's only one leg visible in the shot. By wearing black, he tends to be put more into the shadow here as well. And so it very much describes her, even in terms of status signals and symbols. She's got the jewellery showing the diamonds, the gold, whereas Harry, on the other hand, all we can see him wearing wooden beads around his wrist, so a lot lower in terms of status symbols as well. So we're seeing here Harry almost in compliant mode, though. He doesn't look unhappy with this pose. He doesn't look as though he's fighting it, but very much Meghan looking like the power broker, the one that would be in the lead here. And although it was temporary and they do switch and swap roles, this for me was that very iconic defining moment where we saw the royal prince back in the role of spare again.